Chapter 2, Section 7 of Cup of Gold. This is a Librivox recording. All Librivox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit Librivox.org. Read by Kurt from Tucson, Arizona. Cup of Gold by John Steinbeck. Henry Morgan came to the English town of Port Royal and left his baggage on the beach while he went looking for his uncle. "Do you know where I may find the lieutenant governor?" he asked in the streets. "His palace is yonder, young man, and who knows, he may be in it." His palace, it was like a British gentleman become an official far from home. It was like the man Robert Morgan had described. His letters dated from the palace of the lieutenant governor. Henry found the palace, a low, grubby house with walls of whitewashed mud and a roof of red tiles badly molded. There was a gaudy halberdier standing at the door, holding his great, ineffectual weapon rigidly before him, the while he maintained a tortured decorum in the face of a swarm of enemy flies. The halberd lowered across the pathway as Henry approached. "I'm looking for Sir Edward Morgan." "What do you wish with his excellency?" "Why, you see, sir, he's my uncle, and I wish to speak with him." The soldier scowled suspiciously and stiffened his hold on the halberd. Then Henry remembered his lessons of the plantation. Perhaps this man, for all his red coat, might be something of a slave. "Get out of my way, you damned pup!" he cried. "Get out of my way, or I'll see you hanged." The man cowered and almost dropped his weapon. "Yes, sir, I'll send your word, sir." He blew a little silver call, and when a servant in green lace came to the door, he said, "A young gentleman to see his excellency." Henry was led into a little room made dark with thick gray hangings edged with dull gold. There were 3 dim portraits on the walls in black frames, 2 cavaliers in plumed hats holding their swords horizontally so they looked like stiff, slender tails, and a pretty lady with powdered hair and a silken gown which left her shoulders and half her breasts uncovered. From some place beyond the curtained doorway there came the thin twanging of a harp slow struck. The servant took Henry's letter and left him alone. And he felt very much alone. It was a house of cold, precise hair-splitting. One was aware of a polite contempt even in the pictured faces on the wall. The British arms were embroidered on the curtains of the door, the lion on one side holding half the shield, and the unicorn with his half on the other. When the curtains hung straight, the design was complete. In this room, Henry began to fear his uncle. But all these thoughts of his were shocked from his brain when Sir Edward appeared. It was his father as he remembered him, and yet never his father. Old Robert would never have had a mustache like an eyelash, and nothing in Robert's life could have made him pinch his lips together until they were as thin as the mustache. These 2 might have been born alike as beans, but each had created his own mouth. Robert had spoken truth. This man was his strutting counterpart. But Sir Edward was like an actor who, though cast in a ridiculous role, yet makes his part seem the correct thing and all others absurd. His purple coat, with lace at the neck and wrists, the long rapier, lean as a pencil in a scabbard of gray silk. The gray silk stockings and soft gray shoes with bowed ribbons on them seemed to Henry the highest type of proper wear. His own good clothing was shabby by comparison. His uncle had been looking at him steadily, waiting for Henry to speak first. "I am Henry Morgan, sir, Robert's son," he began simply. I see you are. There is a resemblance, a faint likeness. And what may I do for you?" "Why, I don't know. I came to call on you and inform you of my existence." "That was kind of you, very kind." It was difficult to broach speech into this field of almost sneering courtesy. Henry asked, "Have you heard any single thing of my parents in the long 5 years I have been out?" "5 years? What have you been doing, pray?" "I was a bond-servant, sir. But of my parents?" "Your mother is dead." "My mother is dead," Henry repeated in a whisper. He wondered if she had died soon after he had gone. He did not feel very badly about it, and yet the words sounded such tremendous things, such final things. This was the end of something that might never be again. "My mother is dead," he murmured. "And my father?" "I have heard that your father does peculiar things in his rose garden. Squire Rise wrote me of it. He plucks the full flowers and casts them into the air like one mazed. The ground is covered with petals, and the neighbors stand about and laugh at him. Robert was never normal. Indeed, he was never quite sane, or he might have gone far with James I. I, for one, always thought he would come to some disgrace or other. He revered nothing worthy of reverence. Why must he do this thing in the open with the people jeering? It brings ridicule on his relatives. And do you think he is really insane, uncle?" "I do not know," Sir Edward said, and added with a touch of impatience, "I merely quoted Squire Rise's letter. My position does not allow me time for vain conjecture, nor much time for idle conversation," he said pointedly. The methodic twanging of the harp had ceased, and now the curtain of the door was thrust aside, and a slender girl entered the room. It was difficult to see her in this dark place. It was plain she was not beautiful, but rather proudly pretty. She was softly dressed, and her face was pale. Even her hair was pale, fragile gold. Altogether she seemed a wan, tired echo of Sir Edward. The girl was startled at seeing Henry there, and he found that he was a little afraid of her in the same manner that he was growing to fear Sir Edward. She looked at Henry as though he were some distasteful food which only the strict rules of courtesy prevented her from pushing away from her place. "Your cousin Henry," Sir Edward said shortly, "and my motherless daughter Elizabeth." Then, nervously, as though no good could possibly come of this contact, "Hadn't you better practice your music a little longer, my dear?" She dropped a suggestion of a curtsy to Henry, and in a voice like her father's, greeted him. "How d'ye do? Yes, sir, I think I had better practice. That last piece is difficult, but beautiful." And she disappeared behind the curtain, whence came again the slow, accurate striking of the harp. Henry gripped his resolve, though he was afraid of this man. "There is a thing I wish to speak of, sir. I want to go a-buccaneering, uncle, on the sea, in a great ship with guns, and when I have taken prizes and a cloud of men gather to my reputation, then I would be capturing a Spanish town for plunder and ransom. I am a good sailor, my uncle. I can navigate in any sea, I think, and I have it in me to plan carefully my campaign. I have read a great lot on the ancient wars. The buccaneers have never been the force I mean to make them. Why, I could form armies and navies of them, my dear uncle. In time I would lead the whole free brotherhood of the coast, and it would be an armed power to reckon with. These things I have considered in the long years of my slavery. There is a crying in my heart to do these things. I think the end of all my dreaming is a great name and a great fortune. I know my powers. I am 20 years old. I've had several years at sea, and I have 1,000 pounds. The man who helps me now, who goes with me as partner, I will make rich. I am so very sure I can do these things, so very sure. I ask you, my uncle, to add to my £1,000 enough, so that I may buy a fitted ship and gather the free brave spirits about me to do my will. If you will place another £1,000 in my hands, I swear to make you richer than you are." The harp was no longer sounding. At the beginning of the boy's outburst, Sir Edward had held up his hand as though to stop him, but the words plunged on, and when the harp had been silenced, Sir Edward looked uneasily toward the door. Now he seemed to bring his interest back to Henry. "I have no money to risk on unsure ventures," he said sharply, "and I have no more time for talk. The governor is coming to consult with me in a moment. But I would say that you are a wild, careless boy who is like to come to hanging of your ventures. Your father is like you, only his is a wildness of the mind. And I must inform you that there is peace between Spain and England. Not very good feeling, it is true, but still peace. If you go marauding, it will be my duty to see you punished, sorry for it though I may be. The Roundheads are no longer in power, and those wild things that Cromwell overlooked are carefully watched now. Remember what I say, for I would not like to hang my nephew. Now I must really bid you good day." Tears of resentment stood in Henry's eyes. "Thank you for coming to see me," his uncle said. "Goodbye," and he went through the curtained doorway. In the street, Henry walked moodily along. He saw his cousin a short distance ahead of him, a tall negro attendant upon her. He continued slowly that she may leave him behind, but the girl lagged on her way. "Perhaps she wishes to speak with me," Henry thought, and quickened his steps to come up with her. He saw incredulously what the darkened room had hidden. She was only a little girl, not more than 14 at the most. Elizabeth looked up as he came beside her. "Do you find interesting things to be doing here in the Indies?" Henry asked. "As many as one might expect," she replied. "We have been here a good while, you know." And touching her slave's arm with her little parasol, she turned into a crossing street and left young Henry looking after her. He was bitter against these proud relatives who seemed to edge away from him as though he were foul. He could not call them silly, for they had impressed him too deeply. They had succeeded in making him feel alone and helpless and very young. The narrow ways of Port Royal were deep with muddy filth, ground to thick liquid by the carts and the numberless bare feet. Port Royal bore the same resemblance to a city as the palace of the lieutenant governor did to Whitehall. The streets were only narrow alleys lined with dirty wooden houses, and each house had a balcony above the street where people sat and stared at Henry as he passed. Stared not with interest, but wearily, as men in sickness watch flies crawling on the ceiling. One street seemed to have no inhabitants save only women, black women and white and gray women, with fever written on their hollow cheeks. They leaned from their balconies like unclean sirens and softly called as he went by. Then, when he paid no attention to them, they shrieked like angry parrots and screamed curses and spat after him. Near the waterfront, he came to a kind of tavern with a great crowd gathered in front of it. Standing in the center of the way was a cask of wine with its head staved in, and a big drunken man in crazy laces and a plumed hat strutted beside it. He passed out cups and basins, and even hats full of wine to the reaching men. Now and then he called for a toast and a cheer, and his crowd screamed its acclaim. Young Henry sought to pass them in his misery. "Come drink my health, young man." "I do not wish to drink," said Henry. "You do not wish to drink?" The big man was overwhelmed with this new situation. Then he recovered his wrath. "By God, you will so drink when Captain Dawes, that took the supply ship Sangre de Cristo this day week, asks you." The lowering man came close, then suddenly drew a great pistol from his belt and pointed it waveringly at Henry's breast. The boy eyed the pistol. "I will drink your health," he said, and while he drank, an idea came to him. "Let me speak to you alone, Captain Dawes, sir." And he tugged the pirate into the tavern door. "About your next trip," he began. "My next trip and hell!" the captain roared. "I've just taken a good prize, haven't I? I've got money, haven't I? Then what is this you are squalling about a next trip? Wait till the prize is spent and the wound's healed. Wait till I've drained Port Royal dry of wine, and then come talking about the next trip." He rushed back into the street crowd. "Boys," he yelled, "boys, you have not drunk my health for hours. Come, shout together now, and then we will sing." Henry walked onward in despair. In the harbor a number of ships were lying at anchor. He approached a sailor sitting in the sand. "That one's fast," he said, to open the acquaintance. "Aye, good enough." "Are there any buccaneers of note in this town?" Henry asked. "None but that Dawes, and he's only a roaring mouse. He takes a little boat loaded with supplies for Campeche, and you'd think it was Panama he brought home for the noise he makes about it." "But are there none others?" "Well, there's one they call Grippo, but he takes no prizes unless they go unarmed. Afraid of his shadow, Grippo. Yes, he's in port with no prize, and drinking black rum on tick, I guess." "Which is his ship?" Henry asked. "Why, there she is. They call her Ganymede. They tell that Grippo stole her in St. Malo when her crew was drunk. He and 9 others tumbled the poor stiff wretches overside and made off with the ship for the Indies. Yes, she's a good craft, but Grippo is no master. A wonder it is that he's not wrecked her before now. Take Mansvelt. There's a master for you, a real master. But Mansvelt is in Tortuga." "A good swift sailor," Henry observed, "though she could carry more canvas without hurt. How about her guns?" "They say she's overarmed, if anything." And on that night Henry found the buccaneer drinking in a hovel on the beach. The man was nearly black. 2 fat wrinkles cut each cheek as though a silken cord were pulled tight against the flesh until it disappeared. His eyes darted here and there like sentries before a camp of little fears. "Are you the one they call Grippo?" Henry asked. "I took no prize," the man cried, starting back. "I take no prizes. You have nothing to fasten on me for." Once in St. Malo he had been accosted thus, and afterwards they had whipped him on the cross, until 100 sagging mouths opened on his body, and every one laughed blood. Grippo had feared all semblance of authority since then. "Who are you?" he asked. "I think I'm going to make your fortune, Grippo," Henry said with assurance. He knew how to handle this man, for he was a counterpart of the many slaves of the plantation. Fearful and perhaps greedy. "What would you do with 500 English pounds, Grippo?" The black man licked his lips and glanced at the empty cup before him. "What must I do for this money?" he whispered. "You will sell me the captaincy of the Ganymede." Now Grippo was wary. "The Ganymede is worth much more," he said firmly. "But I do not want to buy the ship, only the captaincy. Look, Grippo, I'll make this compact with you. I will give you 500 pounds for a half interest in the Ganymede, and all of her command. Then we will put to sea. I think I know how to win plunder if there be no interference in my company. Grippo, I will give you a writing to this effect. If I fail in one single undertaking in the Ganymede, then you shall have the whole ship back, and you shall keep the 500 pounds. Grippo still looked into his empty cup, but suddenly he was filled with excitement. "Give me money!" he cried out. "Quick, give me the money!" Then, "Oloto! Oloto! Bring white wine, for the love of Christ!" End of Chapter 2, Section 7.